Yeah, everybody says that. I know. They say that if there was some big tragedy or disaster in the news when you were young, you always remember where you were and what you were doing when you first heard about it. But oh, golly, not me. I can't remember what I was doing or where I was when I first heard that President Lincoln had been assassinated. I don't know. Oh, hello. Welcome, Spooks fans. Come on in to the library here at Horror Hotel, and let's see what we can do by way of Creepy Cheapies. Now, I don't know when you are seeing this, of course, but if you're seeing it close to the time it was recorded, which was the year 2029, yeah, there was sort of a shortage of new, exciting, worthwhile masks to talk about. So we kind of branched out a little with the Creepy Cheapies into other areas. Now, let me just mention that way back in the 80s, there was a movie called An American Werewolf in London. And if you are not aware of the movie, it's noted for its groundbreaking special effects in the area of turning a human into a werewolf. It was very, very impressive with Rick Baker's special effects that were innovative and introduced some new techniques at the time. And everybody wanted, collectible stuff eventually once it became a hit and a well-known and well-liked movie. And Don Post Studios, I believe it took them about 3 years. I think the movie came out in the early 80s, and in the mid-80s, Don Post Studios, the most famous and historic and influential and important mask company in the history of Earth. There's a different one that's influential on Mars, but we're talking about Earth. Don Post Studios in 1985 came out with a series of masks based on the movie. Now, oddly enough, even though it's called An American Werewolf in London, and it has nothing to do with the Universal classic from 1935, Werewolf of London, no connection, except that they both have werewolves and take place in London and are movies. Other than that, the odd thing about it is that the final stage werewolf in An American Werewolf in London from the 80s, which you'd think would be the obvious mask everybody would want, like everybody would want a mask of Lon Chaney as the Wolfman from the classic Wolfman. Well, it didn't work out that great as a mask because if you haven't seen the movie, the final stage werewolf in it looks more like a grizzly bear, and he walks on all fours, you see. So he has his head doesn't come up like a head up from a neck, it goes forward from a body, you see, like an animal. So it wouldn't be possible for you to really dress up as the werewolf from the movie for Halloween unless you are a pig, a cow, a large dog, or other quadruped. So instead, Don Post Studios did a series of masks from a scene in the movie in which a bunch of monsters crash into a house and kill everybody. It's true. It has nothing much really to do with the rest of the movie, but it's very shocking, scary, scared audiences at the time. And the monsters in it, even though you only see them for a few seconds, they're some of the scariest monsters. Everybody liked those monsters. So Don Post did a series of 3 of the masks, which I have always found puzzling because there are 4 monsters in the scene. Watch the scene. There's a 4th monster in there. He's a guy with a mohawk. He's a great monster too. I don't know why nobody loves him as much as they do the other 3. I have seen private artist versions of that monster done a couple of times, and they're great, but they're not really part of a series. You wouldn't want to have like 3 of those from that scene be official licensed such and such, and then the 4th one is like painted differently, sculpted differently, different techniques, and doesn't really make a series. Somebody should do that series again and do all 4 of them, I think. But that's just me. Anyway, one of those monsters, who I believe were on their way to a costume party, judging from the film, they were on their way to a costume party dressed as Nazi soldiers. And did you guys ever go to a big restaurant where they take your name, and there's a wait, there's a big crowd, and they say name. We used to do that a lot. We used to go to big restaurants like that, and I used to like to give them dumb names just because they'd say it. I remember one that I used to say, they'd say, how many in your party? I'd say 5. Your name? I'd say Nazi. And I would just say that to hear them a few minutes later call out, Nazi party, your table is ready. And all the other people would Other good choices are Masquerade Party, Republican Party. You know, there are all kinds of them that sound confusing to the populace at large. Anyway, back to these masks. The Don Post masks were available in the 80s, and then way later, in 2015, I believe, yeah, Trick or Treat Studios, can we get their logo up? Trick or Treat Studios did the same 3 masks, but they're different sculptures, and they're new versions. And one of them, I'm going to show you here, is called Werewolf, or Demon Werewolf, or Werewolf Demon, either way. And this guy was originally one of the Don Post masks, but there were some significant differences. It's not the same sculpture. The Don Post one from the 80s was blue, his complexion, and I don't mean like a little bit blue-gray. I mean he was sort of turquoisey, aquamarine, leading towards blue. He was pretty darn blue, and it looked cool. And he had wonderful hair. He had that great hair that Don Post Studios used to use that they called salt and pepper yak hair, which always looked so great on the masks. It was a mix, had a little bit of white in there. And he always had the skunk stripe, had the white stripe on the top. What? Oh, he resents me calling it a skunk stripe. Okay, what I meant was it's a racing stripe. Yeah, he's okay with that. Anyway, the Don Post one was very small. I can't imagine anybody could have got it on their heads without a lot of stretching. People are complaining today about masks being small, but wow, some of the Don Post masks of the 1980s, like some of the Star Wars editions that came out, they were great sculptures, but they were so small, you know? If you dropped a Don Post Star Wars mask from the 80s into your tossed salad, you'd never find it again. But anyway, it did have great hair, and it was blue, and it was smaller. This is the 2015 version from Trick or Treat. Why am I talking about it? Well, I hung on to one from 2015, and I still have it, and we did some work on it. Mostly Laura. I didn't do that much. Laura mostly worked on it. But I thought, hey, that's something I can talk about a little bit on Creepy Cheapies. I can discuss the options of customization and maybe make some of the viewers aware of things that you can do to make your commercial masks look a little sharper, a little more upgraded. Unfortunately, I didn't have one from 2015 unmolested, so I had to order one, and they have stopped making these. This is not in production anymore. However, it still can be found online as of here in 2029. You can find them online. Look up AWIL, because that's the initials of the movie. AWIL Werewolf Mask or Demon Werewolf Mask. Anyway, you can find them. Morris Costumes still has them. OTC. You know, let me back up just a little bit right there, because I just said OTC, and some of you guys might be thinking, over-the-counter werewolf mask? No. I assume you know I meant Oriental Trading Company. When the mask guys and Halloween guys and sellers of novelty items say OTC, we don't mean over-the-counter. We mean Oriental Trading Company. I've been buying merchandise from Oriental Trading Company for like 30 years. It's true. And if you're not familiar with them, look them up, because they have lots of wonderful Halloween stuff, always at good prices. OTC, Oriental Trading Company, not OTC, over-the-counter, like you might think of an OTC cold remedy or something. Not like that, no. Because in this case, it doesn't matter whether your mask is an over-the-counter werewolf mask or a prescription werewolf mask as directed by your physician. So I bought this one, and it turned out they've changed the colors a bit over the years. And the eyes are fantastic. Now this one, of course, is unmolested, unchanged, not customized in any way. Look at those eyes. Wow, are you kidding? It's fantastic. However, why does he not look really scary as in the movie? I submit that it is this hairline. This going back, and the fact that it's just sort of shapeless. And the ones that came out before were actually less accurate in that regard. This is actually a little bit of an improvement over the early copies from Trick or Treat. But they tended to have the hair put on in just kind of this oval shape, and it always reminded me of one of those Halloween costumes that have like a hood and, you know, like the Pink Bunny from Christmas Story, or sometimes you see cats and rabbits and you have the hood with your face that shows, and then you draw on some whiskers or a nose or something. Kind of looked like he was wearing one of those. And I don't like this stuff that's hair on him. Now we will maybe discuss at greater length of hair. Yeah, we'll discuss some of the differences in hair in a future video if you guys want, if you like, if you care. But what they're using now is called roving, and it is basically the same stuff as the good crepe hair from back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, etc. But it has not been processed very much. It's rougher, and it has these little geschputzes, these little bestoinks all over the place. That they call them cuticles, you know, like on your fingernails, same word. And it makes the hair kind of clump up and stick together. It hasn't been washed and chemically treated properly. And the reason for that is it's very expensive to do that now. So most of the companies making masks commercially just go with sticking on roving wool hair or top roving. And it doesn't look like hair to me. It's spongy and weird and tangly. You can't really comb it out. It just doesn't work for me. Maybe you're okay with it, and maybe on some monsters, but here I think it's hurting this guy. So, all those years ago, blow the dust off this one that I just took off the shelf. This is the redone hair. This is done with the proper crepe hair, the really nice stuff like they used in the 80s and the 70s, and I probably should have paid attention before I held it up on camera, but I didn't. Maybe it's messed up. But this one had all of this stuff removed by Laura Lady, who then rehaired it with the better, fully processed crepe hair. Now, you're thinking, wow, he completely repainted the whole thing. It's total repaint. It really isn't. The ones that came out back then were much closer to this paint job. This color scheme happened much more recently. I didn't repaint the teeth. I like these teeth better. The early copies had these sort of pale, you know, I think much more natural dentifrice looking teeth, right? But now they're very yellow. I don't know if you can see that. They're super like canary, like sunshine yellow, and they make me hungry for noodles. So I like these teeth better. The eyes are the same colors, but with different techniques. The later copies, which I showed you close up a moment ago, has these big circles. They do have the red and sort of gold and the big black pupils going on. Look at the eyes, how they were painted on the early copies. A little different with these little crackly lines, sort of like bloodshot lines going on in there. Different sort of effect, isn't it? And the color of his skin is different. The later ones seem just a bit darker. I like this one better, and if you look at the hairline, you'll notice Laura Lady has given him the dramatic point in the top like he had in the movie, which makes him more movie accurate. Brought the hairline down a little bit closer, which is more like in the movie, and reshaped the side of it to look more like the mask used in the movie. And that point is actually pretty important. That widow's peak, like, you know, Lily Munster and Dracula and Vampira, they all like the widow's peak, right? But if you look right in the middle there, see the point? No, I didn't say you could go to Cedar Point. I said see the point. You don't see the point either. Okay, moving on. Where were we? Oh yes, the hairline. Now Laura custom blended this. This is a mix of dark gray, medium gray, and a little white to give him the streaky look. And I think that looks infinitely better than just the plain roving hair stuck on there, roving wool hair. And if you look at the nose on this one didn't have any dark paint on it. It was just the same color as the rest of his face. And I remember thinking when I looked at the stills of the one from the movie, it looked to me like he had a dark gray or maybe even black nose. So I put some dark gray on his nose. This one has some dark gray on the nose, which is right on the nose, but it's as plain as the nose on his face that he's darker all over, so you don't get as much of a difference, much of a contrast between the nose and the skin surrounding it. But if you look at that hairline, this hairline is really robbing this sculpture of a lot of its dramatic power. Look how much scarier he looks when his hair is done with this great attention to detail. And I'm not saying Trick or Treat needs to make their, you know, $70 masks or $60 masks look like this. I know that's unrealistic because the cost of really good crepe hair has increased by about what was $1 back then is $8 now. And the other thing is, Laura was very careful with the hairline and went to great pains to make it very movie accurate. Now, we redid a few of these for friends, and some people wanted the hair really dark. I thought kind of close to the color of the face looked right to me, but that's just me. If you would rather have like really, really dark hair, you could do that too. But the scary thing, the sad thing about today's video is that I'm not going to make this an hour and 49 minutes long. It's already been an hour and 49? Okay, then I better wrap it up, a la the Mummy. I'm not going to spend all day telling you how it's done. However, you can see the shape of the hairline makes a big difference, I think, in his overall dramatic impact and makes him look more powerful. And again, I did very little to the paint. One thing I did do to this one, the skin was all kind of the same, and this is an important tip you could use for any mask if you have an airbrush or any other means of adding a little bit of shading. These lines that are shaped like an eyebrow right under the brow, I sprayed a little bit of black in there because it didn't look like he was concentrating. He looked more surprised, you know. With those not blackened in, this same beautiful, wonderful sculpture somehow looks more like he's saying, "I tell you, there's trouble," than being ferocious and mean and scary. This one, I think, looks like he's scary and he enjoys being scary. So that's what you want in a werewolf. And what's up with you guys using guns in that movie? I was very disappointed. You know, for a monster to stoop to as common a thing as an ordinary gun, like some run-of-the-mill thug or ordinary criminal. Really? What do you think those teeth are for, you guys? Come on. Huh? Oh, I didn't know that. He says at the time they made the movie, all four of them had recently had bridge work done and didn't want to attack people with their teeth. So they thought, well, we could just shoot people with guns in the scene. That'll look scary to everybody, right? So that's what they... Anyway, that's about it for today. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you'd like to see more of these comparisons of before and after, and more discussion of what can be done to upgrade commercial masks. And as for next week, well, I haven't thought of anything yet, but if worse comes to worse and it comes right down to it, maybe we could go out to the cemetery around midnight, and I'll take my shovel and we'll do an unboxing video.